Hi everybody, welcome to Sprague Woodturning. My name's Jim. If you haven't been here before, this is predominantly a turning channel. Each and every week I show people how to make things on the lathe. Now, this is going to be the first turning video in the new workshop, and what we're going to be working on over my right shoulder here is a really large maple burl. So we're going to cast that in epoxy. I'll show you the condition of it. It definitely needs epoxy, lots of dry rot in it. But anyway, this is going to be the first video in the new workshop, even though the workshop is not set up. But if I can get this poured, it'll give me a couple of days to set things up, and hopefully I'll be good to go from there. And of course, we're going to give away a bunch of stuff in this video. At the end of this video, we're going to draw names for a tool giveaway, a sandpaper giveaway, and an epoxy giveaway. So please stick around for that, and never know, maybe your name will be the one that's called. All right, well, let's move over to the, I've got things kind of temporarily set up until I can get things exactly where I want them, but we'll move over to what was the casting bench and have a look at this burl and see what direction we're going to go in with this and what to do with this gigantic burl. All right, so here's our burl. I'll probably zoom this in a little bit to give you an idea of what this looks like. But you know, all these light areas, that's dry rot. There's tons of cracks in this. Yeah, we should be able to get a 14.5-inch blank out of this, hopefully. You can see a little cut mark here. Let me zoom you in here. So this already had a chainsaw mark in it. That's okay, because the biggest bucket that I've made is 14.5 inches, and I made it so it will fit inside of my vacuum chamber. But anyway, we're gonna have to cut this off across here anyway. There is a flat spot on the bottom. So by cutting this off here, we'll hopefully match that thickness close to it anyway, hopefully. And we'll round this on the bandsaw. And of course, we got to strip the bark off. So that's the burl. But you know, the only thing that can save that right now is epoxy. That's not even safe to turn with all them cracks in it. This is my biggest vacuum chamber. It's a bit of an antique now. And before you ask what brand name it is, I have no idea. I bought it from eBay many years ago, and haven't seen it since. It did come with a sticker. Sticker fell off. I don't know. It's got a big thick acrylic top, and what I've made is essentially a 14.5-inch bucket. So it fits perfectly inside of this, and that's what we'll throw the big burl into, and well, a pile of epoxy. So we'll probably throw this under vacuum for an hour or so, and then let it cure naturally in the clean room. All right, so that's it for that. Let's go over to the bandsaw, get this rounded, and get to mixing some epoxy. Oh yeah, that's nice. So we're going to save this piece of burl, and of course the other pieces from the rounding of this blank. You know, I do try to save as much burl as I can, but sometimes sacrifices have to be made, if you will. But anyway, it's some pretty nice burl on the inside of it. Might be a little hard for you to see, but there is an indexing hole right here. So take this, put it in our hole here, and then drop this down on the circle cutting jig. If you want to make a circle cutting jig like this, I did make a video on this. You'll have to have a look through my my video library to find it. It should be under shop tools, but it works great. Having some little plugging issues just because the dust collection isn't hooked up. I just didn't have time to ground it properly and get it going. My focus was to get this into basically the stage where the epoxy is starting to cure, and then of course I plan on working on the workshop while it's curing, because I didn't really have anything else to do. But anyway, the bandsaw still isn't hooked up. It's just this 4-bowl set took a lot of time. I'll get into that a little bit later on, but yeah, it was Very, very labor intensive. I should have picked a little easier one maybe for my first video in the shop. Without the dust collection, this really plugs up. So that's why I was having a hard time moving this and spinning this. Now this must have come off a fairly old tree, because you can look, the bark is actually very, very thick on it. It's very satisfying when the bark comes off like this and you don't have to really fight for it to come off. There are some spots where it's on there decently, but you know, if you can get that little flat tip screwdriver underneath of it, big chunks were popping off. So, and yes, I did hold on to this bark so that we can do a bark casting down the road here. I think I definitely have enough now, so maybe that'll be a video in the near future. Must say it definitely looks a lot different now. That in the center there pretty much goes all the way down to almost the inside. Well, oh yeah. Yeah, pretty much. So again, there's no saving this unless you use epoxy. That's all there is to it. This is fairly heavy, so it's a little difficult to bring to the lathe and hold on to it and then, you know, use the wire brush on the lathe. So the wire brush and the drills work perfectly fine here. One of the really big things you have to do is make sure to take the air gun and really blow at all these little cavities. Make sure you get rid of as many floaties as you can, because we'll see them later on here, but you know, they're easy to get out. But take your time. I mean, again, it always surprises me how long it takes to prep these pieces before we can even mix up any epoxy. All right, that took a while. Let's mix up some epoxy. Oh, that's heavy. To give us a fighting chance of not dealing with thermal cracking, we're going to be using deep casting epoxy from Designer Epoxy. And I do have an announcement about a sale at the end of the video here, so I'll talk about that, but it's a really good sale they got coming up. So with the new workshop, I want to do all of this in the casting room, but I'm not set up and running yet, so that's why I'm casting out here. And I want to, for this piece, I want to pick one of the most requested colors, and that is sapphire blue. That is hands down probably one of the most asked for colors on my channel, so that's what this casting is going to be. If it's still liquidy tomorrow, which I'm hoping it still is, that means it hasn't thermally gone off, then maybe we can mix in a separate color. I used to be a Blue Laguna fan, still am, but this sapphire blue, yeah, I have to agree with my wife. I think it might be my favorite now too. Any guesses on how many liters we're going to need? I'm going to say it's going to take 6 of these buckets. I'll mix up the next one and I'll be right back. So this will be the last bucket. I'm starting to get really close to the top here, and once we put this under vacuum, then we're probably going to get lots of bubbling, and I don't want it to bubble over. I might add another one after that, but I think 6 buckets would have been pretty darn close. Still would have probably had some wood being exposed though. Okay, I'll get the lid on this and we'll draw a vacuum on this and see what we're looking at. I suspect that it's going to be very bubbly. Some people might wonder if this would have been a successful casting without a vacuum chamber. And the answer to that is probably yes. Would you have had to do a lot more fixes? Absolutely. The vacuum chamber is by far the one tool that you should have if you're going to do resin casting. And I'm glad that I've got this large one to take on projects this size. when I need it. Well, that's full vacuum. Just wish this light wasn't so irritating. Maybe that's the best spot. All right, I'm just going to keep doing this for probably the next half hour, and I'll bring you back when we're, I don't know, we'll have to see where the level's sitting at. This here is a gross overpour, and I fully expect this to thermal crack. I'm hoping that it doesn't. I'm hoping that there's enough wood in there to offset it, to take some of that heat away. But with it not being under pressure, that may help it. But anyway, I'll bring you back here in a half hour and we'll see where the level's sitting. Well, that's been 45 minutes. So I'm going to release the vacuum. And I see that we've got some floaties that we need to take care of. And then we'll get it in the clean room to cure. Yeah, it was inevitable that you're going to get some floaties out of this. The good thing is that pretty much all of the bark is going to float at this stage because it isn't saturated with the epoxy. You know, a little later on it may eventually grab enough epoxy that it will sink to the casting, but right now it's floating and easy to get. So I just measured this, and this is a 7-inch pour. So that's and you know, we've gotten away with 7-inch pours lots. The problem is volume. There's a lot of volume in here, and I'm afraid that if we really push our luck here, I'm really hoping this isn't going to thermal crack, but I mean, it's right, there's a lot of volume. So I'm not going to add any more. I really want to, but I'm not going to add any more. And we've got some risk to this cut here. I'm worried about that leaking. But anyway, that's it. I'm just going to throw this in the clean room, and we'll see you guys in there in 72 hours. In the meantime, I'm going to get at the workshop here and hopefully have it all set up when it goes to turn this. Anyway, we'll see you then. Before I start the video, I thought that I'd give you a shop update to show you kind of the progress that I've made since I talked to you last. And yeah, I mean, things have come a long way. If you're OCD, I'll apologize right now, but this is every inlay material that I possess that is not silver, it's pewter. And get some lapis lazuli. And this was a suggestion in the comments for crushing up inlay material, so I thought that I would get this mortar and pestle, the stone one, and it might be easier moving forward to, you know, use that to crush up shells and everything else. So we'll give that a go here, maybe and possibly next week. Still have 2 more retractable cord reels to put up. The equipment is not in its final position. That's probably going to stay where it is. I like that because you have a long run back and forth like this with it if you want to do some resawn. The lathe, for the most part, is going to stay where it is. I've made a temporary stand for the dust collector. There is a device that goes onto the ceiling that holds this, so I still have to set that up. But you know, it was you know, getting the shop functional. And that quartered reel up there, that's gonna service this and this and my light, because we need lights for filming. And what else? There's our casting. No thermal cracking that I can see. Fingers crossed there's none down inside of it. Mountain of boxes. Yeah, I've been busy. And yep, not enough storage space. So I think I'll probably get another one of these, place it here, and that way we can clean up all this mess and everything will look nice and neat. I might order another 8 of these so it all kind of matches. But all the real heavy stuff is on the bottom, and then it, you know, increasingly as you go up, gets lighter. What else? We've made the decision that We're going to throw these cabinets out. They're just too bad a shape. They really, really are. That's the piece that mounts on the ceiling, but I've got a new piece. But they're just, I don't know. Just too much work. Just too much work to get them for what they're worth. We'll just keep an eye on Facebook Marketplace, and we'll buy, I mean, they're putting used cabinets on there all the time, so eventually we'll get something. Chop saw station, again, don't know for sure. I'm thinking that it is probably going to stay there though. I've just placed that in the back. I don't know. That'll probably end up moving somewhere else. And this equipment here, I mean, you can see we've got a ton of floor space here. So all this stuff is going to be dismantled. I might use this as, after I redo it, I might use this as a table inside of the clean room slash casting room. That is still not set up. I do got my pressure pots ready to go here. I actually need to screw this one down. This one doesn't need screwing down. It's plenty heavy. It's not going to move around. Casting buckets, of course. This is, well, this is filled up quite quickly. So, you know, stuff that I'm not going to be using all that often, I'll put up there. Yeah, I got all my buckets down below. But I will definitely be doing a, once the shop is done, I'm actually holding my epoxies in here right now so that I've got the heat on in here so they flow nicely. So that's why I've got them sitting in there in that hot water heater for now. Don't worry, the hot water heater's not on. There's no water out here. So I'm not gonna have a bathroom until the house is installed. Anyway, that's a quick shop update. I know that a lot of people are probably curious where I'm at, but it's been, ever since I shut the camera off for this casting, it's been it's been busy. But anyway, speaking of that, let's get to this casting because we got a long day, and my intentions right now are to make this into a 4-bowl set. So it's gonna be a long day. So let's see if we can get this out of the bucket. That's gonna be the first thing. Well, I need to get the bucket out of here, and then we'll see if this is gonna come out easy from the bucket that I made. Oh man, this thing is so heavy. Hopefully it comes out easy. Hopefully we didn't have any leaks. That's the other big one, because it might be glued to the inside of this pot if that's the case. And it's not moving. We can try a little bit of compressed air, see if we can get it to move out, but don't hold your breath. As it laughs at me, not a chance. It's not moving. That is concerning. You gotta be really careful not to damage this seal here. Well, not so much the seal. If you dent this rim in, you'll never get a seal on it again if you need to use it, like I did in this video. So for some reason, I cannot locate my large black dead blow hammer, which is kind of concerning because I've got pretty much everything unpacked. So I don't know where that's hiding. It's here somewhere. But for now, this will have to do. I guess what we can try and do is get the casting out of the bucket, but I assume that it would be a lot easier to get the bucket out first. So I guess we'll try that. Oh, how awesome is that? Oh, man, this thing is heavy. Whew. Give me a minute. Oh, I gotta catch my breath there. Give me a minute. Whew. So go figure, the first thing that I'm going to cast in the workshop is an epic bucket fight to get it out. But there you have it. I guess things are not going to change. Anyway, I'm going to use a pair of dividers here just to find center. It's just a lot easier because we got all those pieces of wood sticking up through the top. Actually, let's weigh this first so I can give you an idea how much this weighs. All right, we'll do pounds first. Yeah, I know, I'm a Canadian. Wow. 41.3 pounds. And in kilograms, 18.75 kilograms. And plus that pot, I mean, this thing's probably 50 pounds. So that's no surprise I'm struggling with it. All right, now we're going to go on the lathe. When I first tried to mount this, the body of the live center was hitting on that piece of wood. So just using the Kutzall grinding disc to grind that down so that we've got some clearance there. Starting off with the number 3 Hercules, like I usually do when we're working with these hybrid castings. Yeah, so again, if you're relatively new to my channel, you're probably going to say, well, why are you not using mold release? Why are you not using wax? There's been some people suggest using vegetable oil. I can't remember. There's been some other suggestions so that these castings come out easier. And, you know, it may not have been such a big deal in this casting because that piece of wood really weighed a lot. It probably would have floated when I put the epoxy in, so that's why I glued it in. So, you know, I really don't like risking either spraying mold release in the bottom of this bucket before the casting goes in, or waxing it. And by the way, waxing paste wax is far superior to any mold release you'll ever use. But, you know, I don't use it because I'm worried about that bond breaking free from the hot melt glue and then having that piece of wood float. And then, of course, it's ruined. Your casting will be ruined. In this case, it's a large piece. You might be able to salvage some of it, but, you know, it's one of these things in my mind where it's just not worth it. Same thing with putting spacers in my work. You know, once you put a spacer in a casting, well then that's the way that's going to have to be turned. You can't change your mind in the future because it may affect maybe that spacer showing through in your work or being left behind in your work. So that's why I don't use any paste wax or any mold releases or anything like that. I would sooner fight to get the piece out of the bucket then come back the next day and see it floating and essentially the casting being ruined. And the last thing on these mold releases and, you know, like other suggestions, you know, like I'm not a chemist. You know, epoxy is, you know, it's a chemical. So what are going to be the results of you throwing that into, you know, your bucket where you've put some sort of foreign substance in there? Is it going to affect the cure of the epoxy? Is it going to make the epoxy cloudy? There's all kinds of bad things that could happen. And it also could be, on the other hand, that it'll work just fine. But, you know, I'm no chemist and I'm not about to learn how to be one. I just know that mixing dissimilar materials is never a good idea in anything. And this is why when I'm doing finishes, I typically try to stay with the same manufacturer. I'm using the Waterlux sealer, and I'm using the Waterlux original and not a different sealer underneath of it. And there's our first indication as to how this thing's going to look. Very, very busy. And look at all the room. That's one thing that, standing there at the lathe, I was like, man, there's a lot of room around here. This is awesome. It'll be even better once everything is all set up properly. The dust collection hose won't be hanging there like it is now. It'll be more suspended in the ceiling. I'm still trying to figure out a way to, I might just put in a Y a little further down, because my intention is to get another lathe, and it's going to be sitting on the opposite side of where I'm standing, so that way it can service both of those lathes. But yeah, I mean, one thing I noticed is I'm getting a lot more steps in because the workshop is so large. Just the other day I was like almost 8,000 steps, and I don't think I had my phone on me the whole time. So yeah, maybe I could afford to shed a few pounds, like maybe 40. So maybe that'll help me in that regard. Kind of the other funny thing is, you can see that blue cabinet behind me when I initially started roughing this out, when it's not round. The process can be quite violent, and it does send off big shards of epoxy. That's why I'm wearing gloves here, so that I don't get cut with it. But I could hear the pieces of epoxy hitting off the front of that toolbox, and ting, 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 ting. That's all I could hear the whole time until they got rounded. And you get rid of all that excess epoxy, then the shavings don't typically fly, or they're not even shavings, they're shards, I'll say. And there was some even at the other end of the workshop. That's how far this stuff will fly. But if you're not wearing gloves here, there is a good chance that you could get cut with it as it comes off. So that's why I wear these tight-fitting gloves. Once everything is kind of rounded and safer to turn, then usually I take the gloves off, because I do like that you don't have any feel with when you're wearing gloves. And when it comes to turning, a lot, it's a lot of feel. Wood turning, you have to have a really fine touch, and this is why some people maybe sometimes struggle with it, is because you do have to have that fine touch. You do have to be fairly steady as well. You can, in the close-up pictures or video, you'll see I'm always making kind of little micro adjustments with the Hercules or whatever I'm using, trying to find that sweet spot that it wants to cut in. Where you're not getting shards and you're getting shavings. And after a while, when you've done this for a while, you'll know when things are going the way that they should be going. My plan is to incorporate a tenon on the bottom of this. I figured that I had enough height here that really wasn't going to be an issue, so I didn't need to glue on a glue block. I'll talk about the 1/3 rule, and if you're not familiar with what the 1/3 rule is, essentially the diameter of your bowl, your foot should be 1/3 the size of that. Now, I've never been one to really follow the rules like that, but if you take a wood turning course and you're talking bowls, then they'll probably cover that, and that's just for function and aesthetics. If you have a small foot, then of course the bowl has a greater chance of being knocked over when it's sitting on the table. But you can kind of see what will be the finished foot developing there, and of course the tenon that I plan on putting in the chuck. And with that being penetrated with the epoxy, I have no problems with that. That is definitely not going to break off, that's for sure. Just checking my jaw set to make sure that the top of the jaw is resting on the bottom of the bowl. And when that's done, I'm just going to take this off and grind off that little nub that's left behind with the Kutzall grinding disc. And then we'll put it back in the chuck and See how things are running. I mean, you usually have to true things up when you put them in the chuck, but this was actually running pretty true afterwards. So on the very top, I would have liked to have held on to this burl. I was really wanting to cut this off, and then I got looking at it, and well, my Sawzall blade wouldn't be long enough to cut it off. I'm certainly not going to do it with a handsaw because I would have been there for an hour, and you certainly can't cut it off on the bandsaw. So unfortunately, sacrifices had to be made here, but yes, I would have definitely liked to add these pieces along with the other pieces from the initial rounding of this together, but it just didn't work out. That's all there is to it. Well, I mean, this would make a spectacular hollow form. But I don't have the tooling that's large enough to do this unless we had a really big opening. That's the only way that I'd be able to hollow this out. So, I think I'll stick with the original idea of it being a bowl set of some sort. 4, 5 bowls even possibly. So I'm gonna lay this out, and then I'll bring it back when we're ready to core. But yeah, definitely be doing epoxy coat on these, because there's a lot of cracks that didn't get filled, and that's probably got a lot to do with the fact that it didn't go into the pressure pot after the vacuum chamber, and it set up probably faster than it ordinarily would too, because of the volume of epoxy that was in the pour. Anyway, I'll lay this out and I'll be right back. Okay, I've got this all laid out. Kind of missed this one a little bit, so this bowl here is not going to be much of a bowl. I'm going to start with the number 1 knife set, and I'm going to go the way that we're supposed to do this. This blank is so large that you can actually do it this way. So we use the number 1 knife set, and then the number 2 knife set, number 3, and number 4. I rarely use my number 4, so kind of interested to see about that. Everything is laid out. The base that this is mounted in will not move forward. It will only move this way. If you move it forward, you'll end up going through the bottom of one of the bowls. So it's very important that the base never moves inward, only from side to side to get your larger bowls. Yeah, tailstock support, awesome. And well, let's see how we make out here. Hopefully things will go smooth, because it's going to be a long day here if they don't. I failed to mention that this is the one-way coring rig, and of course we're using the Core Pro cutter to cut out these bowls. And man, I love this Core Pro cutter. It just eats this epoxy up, and I mean, if you look at the 3 bowls that come out of this main core, yeah, I'm not going to do much with that. I might throw it in a casting later on. It's hard to assign a value to the 3 bowls that come out of this core, but I would say you should be able to get a minimum $800 for the 3 bowls in this that come out of this set. So that there pays for your coring rig, hands down, and it pays for a Core Pro cutter, I would assume. So it's a shame to see the stuff go to shavings, but I know that it's pricey to buy up front, but it really will pay you back. And I know that I've covered this a number of times in other videos. But I love that Core Pro cutter, and there is a link in the description to Hunter Tools where you can get one. A little bit of the sticker shock, but anybody that does any amount of coring, I highly recommend it. And there's a nice little small core. So we're going to use the casting as a friction drive, and I'm going to do this with all 3 of the cores. And all I'm doing is I've got my thumb kind of rubbing on the surface of the casting, and then my index finger touching the bowl. So to find out where, you know, it was missing, then tapping it. And then eventually once it starts running through, I just locked it into position and then took some electrical tape, good old electrical tape, to hold the bowl. I would not even think about trying to tool this like this, but some 60 grit certainly will take care of that little nub. And then we're going to put on my homemade faceplate that's got a waste block on it. All right, so I've swapped everything out to the number 3 knife set. And this is just a little piece of birch. This is just not really long enough to reach this. So after I clamp this down and, you know, and tighten this, pretty confident that this isn't going to go anywhere. But if you remember, I was having issue with the number 3 knife set the last time I did coring. Let's see what happens this time around. I really try to limit how much extension there is out of the tailstock itself. The further it's extended out of the tailstock housing, essentially the more movement you're going to get out of it. So if you get into the situation, just do what I did there with a little block, and that's just a little extender, if you will. And once you tighten that down, it shouldn't go anywhere. It should be just fine. But I do find that, you know, you start to get into here very shortly, that area, about 1/3 of the way in, that's kind of the trouble spot. Yeah, we're starting to get to that spot. Yeah, exactly. And a lot of times if you're going to have a piece come off the lathe, I do find that right about now is when it's going to happen. But in this case, since it's locked down with the tailstock support and it's mounted and chucked securely, it really shouldn't go anywhere. The other thing too is I take the support when I'm working with these dry castings. I tend to move that in a lot more than I would if I was coring out green wood. Probably twice as much I move it. And whenever I set the support, I always bring the knife in and make sure that the support matches the knife perfectly, because you can move that support around a little bit. So it's important that it matches that knife profile, and that way you don't have any binding. And there's a nice core. So same deal, I'm going to use it as a friction drive. This is, I could have afterwards set up my vacuum chuck and held all these with the vacuum chuck. But I realize that in most cases, this is how probably most people are going to do this, or they're going to use cold jaws. That's another thing, that very popular way of holding these bowls so that you can actually put a glue block on the bottom of them or turn a tenon on the bottom of them. Yeah, I only used I don't know, about 1/3 of a roll of electrical tape. It's fairly cheap. I do try to scrape off as much of that hot melt glue that I can, because I can put it back into the electric frying pan. And I haven't showed it in a while, but I do use an electric frying pan that has high temperature hot melt glue in it. And that's what I do. I dip those blocks in it, come over and stick them on. That way there's lots of volume, especially when you're talking a bowl set that is going to be very expensive. You definitely want to take your time to make sure that things are not going to go flying across the shop and break apart, because nobody wants that. Even though it does provide probably good entertainment, I prefer not to ever see that happen. So by using the casting as a friction drive, when you reverse these to put the glue block on the bottom, that really does a good job of lining that up properly. There's not a ton of thickness in the base of these, so you have to really kind of line these up best you can. And due to the thickness of them, by the time you get them trued up inside and outside and sanded, you know, they could get a little thin on you as well. So that's why I could have probably snuck 5 bowls out of this set, but you know, getting greedy here could really cost you large, and probably the biggest cost might be going through the bottom of the largest bowl, the mother bowl, which is the big money bowl, and we don't want to ever do that. So I have layout spacers that I put on my bed, and for dry cut and for wet cut, because when you're doing the wet cut, you're roughing out, and typically you're going to leave about 1 inch in the base of the bowl. Now that is a really nice core. This is bigger than most bowls that I do. Let me measure this. Yeah, so it's 11.5 inches across. I think it's 11 inches, we'll say. So that largest core is larger than most of the works I do here each week. That gives you an indication as to how large of a burl this actually was. And you know, this, I maybe could have turned something more artistic out of this. You know, like I said earlier, a hollow form, but it would have needed to be much smaller than this, or a much larger opening, and then that kind of turns it into an enclosed bowl, and you've wasted the whole interior on this. So when you're dealing with really large pieces like this, I think that bowl sets are probably the way to go with it. But by all means, leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. But I think it's best use for, you know, the material that we're working with. So I'm mounted outboard now, and I prefer to turn outboard because I'm left-handed, and this lathe has left-hand threads, so that's why that's happening. You can see some pretty large cracks in the wood here, and if we had to left this under vacuum longer, that certainly, well, it's not going to hurt. It may have helped a lot. And I really think that this is the role of the pressure pot. Not only does the pressure pot condense any bubbles that may remain in the epoxy before it cures, it will also help to push it into those areas. And yeah, that's just a big, beautiful, busy burl. Love it. Cracks and all. Yeah, there's a big one right there. So, you know, the epoxy just never got to those areas. So, you know what? I'm gonna do a filling of clear of the Flash Bond CA from Designer Epoxy. And of course, we'll use some accelerator. I really don't like spraying the accelerator on there with the thin because it has a tendency to foam. But you know, I was really struggling for time here, so had to had to speed things along. When we start sanding, I'll show you another technique that I don't know if I've even showed here on the channel that I use without even thinking about it sometimes. But I didn't, so I set that on the outside, I left it, then I went to the inside of the bowl and started to trim that up. And then by the time I was ready, you know, by the time the inside was done and ready for sanding, the outside had cured, so there was no issues of glue spraying everywhere when you turn the lathe on. So, because not very many people like that, and well, I'm one of them. Now 255 was as high as I could go on this casting. It just, due to the size of it, I probably wouldn't have a problem turning something like this at 500. That probably would be where I'm at 750 max, as long as it's good and balanced. The problem is right now I don't have my lathe bolted to the floor. Pretty sure that I would have been able to go with a higher RPM if my lathe was bolted to the floor, because I did try to go above that. There's vibration and that kind of smooths out a bit, and I think that I might have been all right there. But I need to use things in the workshop before I permanently fix them to the floor, so that's why that hasn't happened yet. And just honestly, I didn't have any time yet. That's the other reason. So, you know, I'm gonna probably work on this lathe for about a month, make sure I'm happy with its placement. Maybe I'll orientate it a different direction, and once that's done, then we'll proceed to drilling holes in the floor. There were some people wondering, you know, why I didn't put in radiant in-floor heating, and that's the main reason. I'm probably going to be bolting equipment to the floor, and pretty hard to drill into a floor when you've got radiant floor heating. So that's one consideration. The other consideration is that it was very expensive. And the other consideration is I put in an air-to-air heat pump, so I have air conditioning in the workshop. And you'll find out here in a minute why I have that air conditioning, because we've had some pretty brutally hot days here, and it would have been miserable working in there. Yeah, so, I'm just kind of using the back side of my hand, feeling the bottom of that bowl, make sure that, the very base of it, make sure that everything's all tickety-boo there, and then we'll be able to move to the outside of the bowl, do some shear scraping, and then, of course, move on to sanding. So I'm using the Ellsworth gouge to do that. And I failed to mention it last week, but David Ellsworth did pass away. So our thoughts are with his family. I never met David Ellsworth. I definitely would have loved to have taken a course from him. And I know that he's been a big inspiration to a lot of turners around the world. So he truly is a big loss in the wood turning community. But anyway, our thoughts with his family. Another great turner that's no longer with us. Rest in peace. I'm relatively pleased the way that looks, so we'll be able to proceed to sanding. And I must say that it's taken a minute to get there. That will drive me insane. So I gotta fix that. Starting off with the 3.5-inch stipple disc from sandpaper.ca. Again, they're going to be doing a giveaway, $200 Canadian at the end of this video, so thanks to them as well. All my sponsors, man, I got some great sponsors, and if you're into wood turning, please go down to the description and check these guys out because they do make some fantastic products. I should mention, since we're doing an epoxy coat, I'm only sanding from 60 to 180. 3 ounces of the Pro Series from Designer Epoxy. This was definitely needed. Tons of cracks. The lighter areas, like I said earlier in the video, are a little bit of dry rot. And, by using this epoxy coat, it will help to kind of blend that in a little better than what it is. And it will certainly fill in all those tiny little micro cracks. I mean, this here has been a game changer for me as far as working with these difficult castings prior to moving to, conventional finishes. Well, what do you think of that? Man, is that busy. Cracks. Now the lighter areas have kind of blended in a little better than what they were. I can see some areas already starting to dry out. So she's soaking up a lot of epoxy. Oh yeah, sapphire blue. It's my wife's favorite color, quickly becoming my favorite color. And I know there's a lot of other people that really like the look of it. Yeah. Wow, what a burl. Isn't Mother Nature a wonderful thing? All right, so I'm pretty much done for the day. I really had hoped to do those other 3 and get them into their epoxy coat, but this is 9 hours at the lathe, and my back is telling me that you're done for today. So I'm gonna have to do those tomorrow. Yeah, they'll be behind this one, but hopefully we'll be able to catch up at the end here. Anyway, let me know what you think about this gorgeous burl. Amazing stuff. See you tomorrow. So this is the next day, and what I've done is trimmed and sanded all 3 of these cores to 180, and this is the epoxy coat on the largest bowl. Largest core, I should say. And just like the mother bowl, I must say, it looks pretty nice. Busy, busy, busy. And if you've been around for a while, you know that I like busy. Light over here. I think between, like, all of these bowls have a really good balance of epoxy and wood. That epoxy's pretty nice stuff too. Yeah, just full of character. You can look at this set for days Still see new stuff. So I'm just going to throw this back on the lathe and rub it into these cracks a little more. All of these bowls have had probably 3 applications of CA glue to fill in the really bad areas. That way when the epoxy coat goes on, that, you know, we have a nice smooth surface to work with. Anyway, I'm going to throw this back on and give it a little rub down and then throw it in the clean room, and I'll get the next one ready. And here is the second largest core. You might hear the furnace running in the background. It is 44 degrees Celsius with the Humidex today. That's for June, that is really warm. It's a really nice bowl too. Almost a river bowl with this cutting through it. Very nice. Again, that epoxy is just pretty amazing stuff. Really wish we had got the crystal ice white in there, but it just was hardened up too much the next day to do anything with. All right, little guy coming up. And there's the little guy, a river bowl, if you will. And if you don't know what I mean by a river bowl, there's essentially an epoxy river flowing all the way through it. It's a nice little bowl too. And busy like the other ones. Let me know what you think. I love this whole set. All right, big one's going to come up here. I'll show you the condition of it before I start sanding, and then we'll go from there. So here's the mother bowl, and as I let the light go across the surface, you can see the dry areas in it. So that's on the inside. Huge dry spots on the back side. Same deal, just I kept wiping it down. I thought that it had filled in, and I think that it actually has filled in quite nicely. I'm going to sand this. I'll start probably at 120. We'll go all the way to 800, buff it, and then clean it with a denatured alcohol and get our first, well, I think we'll do the sealer coat on it today, and then probably Waterlux Original the next day. Yeah, it hasn't really moved overnight, so that's a good sign. So yeah, most of the tension must have come out of that. It was moving a little bit when I was working on it the previous day. That's kind of why I mentioned that. There was I don't know, I just kind of went on a long drawn out thing. That's why I cut a lot of that out of there. But as I've covered in the past, you know, there's a lot of tension, especially in burls, locked up in those burls, and then when you start working them, well, they kind of release a lot of that. The epoxy probably could have stand it to be there a little bit longer, like another day before using it. Anytime that you cool epoxy down to keep from thermal cracking, you can get into trouble as far as cure times are concerned as well. So, you know, if it's a cooler casting, then you probably should leave it another day extra before working it. Now what I've done here is just sanded this, and then you can see all of the cracks that still remain even after the epoxy coat. Yeah, on the back side and on the inside, and I did this for all 4 bowls. So then I combined it with the thin from, again, from Designer Epoxy, the Flash Bond, and then wherever there was epoxy bubbles, if you will, I blew those out and then put clear in there alone. And any of those other areas that had cracks in the wood, well, I just used the wood dust and then used it with the CA, and it worked great. Universal tongue holder sealer from Waterlux. And, you know, going back to what we talked about with dissimilar materials, well, you know, it's the same thing with Waterlux. I wouldn't use a sealer from another company and then put Waterlux over top of it, because those two finishes may interact with each other. And there it is in its sealer coat. Probably looks a lot flatter than it was yesterday. Oh man, Burl, it's just amazing stuff. And you know, I know that there's a lot of people that hate epoxy, but I mean, look at this, and you know, there was no way of saving this Burl. Only the epoxy. It was not safe to turn. You wouldn't even be able to hold it with a screw because there was really nothing solid to screw into. Anyway, I'm going to throw this back on the lathe, wipe off all the excess, and we'll see you guys tomorrow for the original on this and the sealer coat on the other smaller bowls. So see you then. Yeah, this thing's heavy. Here we are the next day. That's the kind of surface that we have, very matte surface. Again, I know that a lot of folks that are watching this say, oh, that's nice, I like that, but not me. And of course, the sealer is not meant to be a top coat finish, so that's why you cannot use it as such. It won't last. So we're going to buff this with a triple E buffing compound, clean it with some denatured alcohol, and get our first coat of Waterlux Gloss on. I thought that I would put the spelling up for triple E because it's actually one of the, I get a lot of questions about, is it 3 E's or is it triple E? It's triple E as in the city of Tripoli. And should give us about a 1200 grit surface, thereabouts. All right, first coat of Waterlux Gloss Original. And hopefully the only coat that we're going to need because it's Wednesday and we're in trouble as far as having all these bowls done. So this is a very durable finish and I do highly recommend it. And of course, once it's fully cured, just like designer epoxy, it is non-toxic when it's fully cured. Probably not a massive change from yesterday for you guys, but I can definitely see a difference when I'm looking at it. Yeah, it's covered nicely. Man, this thing is so busy. We love busy. Fantastic epoxy. And the great thing about working with wood as a turner, there'll never be any two wooden pieces alike. Kind of like how it's got these splits in it too. Very cool. Right, well, it's Wednesday, so whatever this ends up being tomorrow, that's what will be on camera. So what I'm going to do is do the 3 other bowls off camera, and as I put the finish on them, I'll show you what they look like because we really haven't seen them in any kind of finished state yet. There is the largest core with the sealer coat on it. Light right here. Yep. Love it. That's the furnace run, and I don't know how well the camera's picking that up. That's how loud it is. All right, so I'm just going to set this one on the table, and I'll do the other 2, and then I'll wipe this off after I show you those. Second largest core. All of these are absolutely fantastic. They really are. Hopefully you guys like it too. Yep. Tons and tons and tons of character. Little guy coming up. Pretty sure this is the nicest, smallest core I've done to date. Yes, sir. Beauty. All right, so we're in a bit of a pickle here. So it's Wednesday. These will need a coat of Waterlux Original. So probably what I will do tomorrow, which is Thursday and upload day, I'll probably come down first thing in the morning and I'll buff these and put a coat of the Waterlux on them like I did today with the big bowl. And then later in the day, I'll come back and I'll shoot the outro, but I won't be able to handle these. They'll have to stay on the faceplates. But at least it'll give us a good look as to what these bowls are going to look like. Well, I mean, they're going to look very similar to this. But of course, we need to wipe this stuff all off because, man, if you let this harden on there like this, yeah, it is tough stuff to buff. Anyway, we'll see you tomorrow. Let me know what you think. What you're looking at here are the 6 names that the random YouTube comment picker has selected for the giveaway. These 2 names are for sandpaper, these 2 names are for tools, and these 2 names are for the epoxy. If you don't see your name here, you do not have a chance to win. And if you are contacted by somebody telling you that you've won, well, they are lying to you. And please report that email or that text as fraudulent activity. All right, good luck to everybody. Well, the 6 names that you see here. And anyway, let's pick 3 winners. Good luck. So here are the 2 names for the sandpaper draw. So in they go here. Throw the lid on. And the winner of the sandpaper for a $200 Canadian credit from sandpaper.ca. I'll just mix these around. It's right here. Congratulations, Scott Midori. I think that's how you say that. Yeah, Scott Midori 1437. You are the winner of the sandpaper draw. Congratulations. Send me your details to spraguewoodturning@gmail.com, including a phone number, and I will forward that to sandpaper.ca, and they'll get your $200 credit out to you. Okay, let's do the tools next. Here are the 2 names for the tool giveaway from Hunter Tool Systems. So there they go. And the winner of the $200 tool credit from Hunter Tool Systems is it's right here. Congratulations to Ray Lovett, MI8EP. Ray, you are the winner of the tool giveaway. Congratulations. Again, send your details to spraguewoodturning@gmail.com, including a phone number, and I will forward this on to Mike Hunter, and we'll get your $200 tool credit. Congratulations. And the last one is going to be for the epoxy. Here are the 2 names for the epoxy. And the winner of the 3-gallon kit from Epoxy, from Designer Epoxy, Deep Cast, is right here. Congratulations goes to Yvonne Hughes. You are the winner of the epoxy draw. Again, send your details to spraguewoodturning@gmail.com, including a phone number, and I will get this, and I will forward that on to Designer Epoxy, and he'll get your 3-gallon kit mailed out to you. So congratulations to the 3 winners. Again, you know, I need to cover this each and every time because There's a lot of fraudulent activity going on. If you're contacted by anybody, these are the 3 winners. There are no other winners. They will not, none of my sponsors will ask you for shipping, so don't fall for that. So if you happen to see that in the comments before I see it, there's 3 dots to the right of that comment. Just click on that and then you can report user and then YouTube will take it down. All right, so thank you to everybody that's commented over the last 2 videos. Let's have a chat about the 4 bowl set that I made this week, because I think it may be, I don't think it is. I think it is the best bowl set I've made to date so far. I don't know, the planet one was pretty nice too. Anyway, I'll get that. I'll kind of reset up things here and I'll be right back. All right, we'll start with the biggest and work our way down to the smallest. Man, this thing is beautiful. It is going to need another coat. I took it out of the chuck just so that it was easier to manhandle. But man, it's huge, absolutely massive. Rotating footage at the end should be nice. But it is busy. And if you've been around for a while, you know I like busy. The size on this, get this all written down. So we've got 14 inches across, 5 inches tall, and it's my typical 1/2 inch in thickness. Anyway, let me know what you think about this. So that is the mother bowl. Now I put the finish on the cores this morning, but they're dry enough. It's about 6 hours later, so they're dry to the touch, so that's not really that big of a deal, but I think they're going to need 1 more coat. The size on this largest core is 11 inches across, 3 1/4 inches tall, and it's, again, my typical 1/2 inch in thickness. And again, this is larger than the vast majority of the bowls that I do each week. So that kind of gives you an idea how big this blank was. Just, again, beautiful grain, beautiful epoxy, but it does need another coat. Yeah, and it should look nice when it's lit up at the end. Beauty. And here is the second largest core. And sorry, it's so shiny, it's really hard to get film of. Again, all of these have a really good balance of epoxy and wood. I think they do anyway. Super busy. Yeah. 8 1/2 across, 2 1/4 tall, and 1/2 inch in thickness. I don't know if I said that or not. And the smallest little bowl that I've done, I think might be the nicest one that I've ever done. This is 5 1/2 inches across, and it's 1 inch tall. And if you tried to do the other one that was inside of this, you might end up with a bowl that's about this tall, and it's just too small and finicky for me to work with, to be honest with you. But anyway, just like the other ones, lots of character, and it's a beautiful little bowl. Now, I would love to give that set away, but I'm going to be honest with you. My wife is starting to say, how much do you want to spend on tooling? So she keeps throwing those jabs, and I keep dodging them. But you know, she's going to catch me with a roundhouse one of these days. So I need to sell this set so that I can help pay with shop equipment. I really would like to give this away, but I can't. I mean, it's going to be a fairly expensive set. So if you're interested in this, send me an email to spraguewoodturning@gmail.com, and I'll disclose the price then, in case it's a gift. But yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of equipment costs coming up, including buying a tractor, and I keep hearing, you know, we got a house to build too, right? So I've got to sell it. I can't give it away. I'm sorry. All right. Well, anyway, congratulations to the winners. Thanks again to my sponsors. You guys are absolutely fantastic. Best sponsors that you could really ask for. I've never had an issue getting stuff out of the current sponsors that I have. You know, they're just fantastic. And again, if you need some stuff, go down into the description and all the details are down there, and put some money back in your pocket with my code Inlay Gym. And of course, if you're ordering the CA glue from Designer Epoxy, it's Inlay Gym CA, and that'll help out the channel as well. And speaking of Designer Epoxy, Gabriel wanted me to pass this on to you. I have to put my glasses on for this. My old man glasses on. So he's got a summer sale on right now. My code will work during this sale, which usually it doesn't, but for this sale, my code is going to work. Code Inlay Gym. And right now, 3 gallons of deep cast is $173 US. That's of course down in the US. And with my code, it'll be $155 US. So that's a fantastic price. Up in Canada right now, it's $199 for 3 gallons. So it'll be $199, and with my code, it'll be $179 Canadian. And of course, this is only for deep cast only. So that's great. Thank you so much, Gabriel. I'm sure that a lot of people will be buying epoxy at those prices. I mean, it's a look. I know that Designer Epoxy sponsors my channel, but you know the results are there. I watch a lot of epoxy videos, and so far I've been really happy with Designer Epoxy. And you know, I can't see. I've never heard anybody say, give me an email saying, well, I don't like Designer Epoxy, which I'm kind of surprised by now because I've been on it for years, and you know, you can't please everybody, but it is a fantastic epoxy to work with, and it's easy to work with, so I highly recommend it. All right, well, that's it. Next week is going to be a natural inlay. I know a lot of people have been wanting me to get back to natural inlay, so that's going to be next week in a platter, something like that. It's going to be an anniversary gift, so that'll be next week, so please come on back for that. Thank you so much for watching the videos and helping me along the way here to kind of get to where I am right now. Without your support, I certainly would never have been able to build a structure like this. Well, I might have been able to build it, but I certainly would be a lot deeper in debt for it. So, you know, thank you so much for supporting me along the way. Members, thank you. I mean, especially the membership, and you know, people that just watched my videos all the way through. And you know, if you want to help me out financially, well, all you have to do is not skip the ads. That will certainly boost my income. Speaking of ads revenue here on YouTube, I don't know what is going on. It's just been a steady decline, and I'm a little worried. I don't really know what's going on. One thing, you know, a lot of people, this video may seem to be a little rushed, but that's because of the algorithm. The algorithm is all punishing if you don't upload every week. And so I really had to get a video out this week for that algorithm to keep me kind of there. I don't even know if I'm in it anymore, in the sweet spot anymore, because no joke, I would say that my revenue has easily dropped off a third to a half of what it used to be. And I'm not doing anything differently, so I don't really understand what's going on there. I'm here for now, and you know, at this stage, I don't plan on going anywhere. But yeah, for some reason, the revenue on YouTube, I don't know if it's what's going on in the world, lack of buyers. I don't know. I don't know what's going on in the world, other than right now that there's just a lot of turmoil in the world, and that doesn't help when it comes to retailers trying to sell stuff. And I'm assuming that that's probably why the ads revenue is dropping off. But anyway, we'll just keep plugging away and hope for the best, and hopefully that the ads revenue picks up. All right, well, that's it. I'm out of here. Have yourselves, on that note, have yourselves a fantastic weekend, and we hope to see you back here next week for a cool inlay project as my AC finally shut off. See you next week.